Welcome back to the Product Biz Podcast. I'm so excited today to have special guest Lindsay with us, who actually was on the podcast before, but we brought her back on this episode to talk specifically on how she has really morphed in her business from starting a custom party decor handmade business to pivoting to printables and also now to pivoting to have a course where she teaches people how to make printables themselves. So we have Lindsay here to share that whole trajectory of what she's done, the awesome growth she's seen in business. So welcome, Lindsay. I'm so glad to have you back.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yeah, so
This will
tell
be
us.
fun.
Oh my gosh, I know, so fun. So take us back to the very beginning with your custom handmade party decor business. How did you start that business? And what type of party decor items were you making? Where were you selling? Was it generating a lot of income? Give us the whole spiel for that part of your life and your business.
Yeah. So I started selling custom party decorations on Etsy. All my whole kind of career has been on Etsy. I've tried to kind of, as we'll talk about, kind of diversify my income, diversify where I'm selling things. But Etsy is where I've started and where I've kind of kept going with printables. And I started that based on just being creative and the love of planning parties. I did a lot of things for my wedding. I did my daughter's baby shower. I did other people's showers and birthdays and things like that. And people always told me, you should do this. You should sell this on Etsy. And I remember thinking, well, I'm not professional enough to do that. People would notice that it wasn't perfect, and so, but then I started thinking about it a little more and thought, oh, this could be a lot of fun. So I started that, and you know, as anyone listening probably can relate, when someone first buys your product, you're like shocked, like what? Someone liked my thing. And so that was kind of what kicked it off. And I was like, well, if I can sell this thing, I could do other things. And so the main idea behind the party decorations was to make it custom because a lot of what I had originally seen on Etsy was a lot of just generic items, and I really wanted it to be custom and people could come to me and say what kind of party they were looking for that they couldn't find anywhere else, like colors, fonts, theme. So I would work with moms, well, mostly moms on their kids' birthday parties, but also other things. And that was fun because they could be like, I want, and they would just pull something that was so crazy that I could do for them. So that was really fun. And we did all kinds of things. I mean, everything from banners to signs to favor tags to everything you can imagine that you would need for a party. So
And
it was a lot of fun.
how were you delivering on those? So if someone placed an order, did you have a Cricut? Were you printing? Were you cutting? Were you assembling? What did that actually look like?
Yeah, so I did have a Cricut, and I would just get to work mostly. So a lot of it was the design portion because I wanted it to be all cohesive. So that was a lot of the time of going back and forth with the customer. Okay, what do you think of this? Okay, now we have the set theme. We're gonna put it on everything else. And so then yes, it was a lot of printing and cutting and shipping and all of that, and then praying that it got to them on time for their party.
Hmm.
Which sometimes it didn't. So that was stressful, and that is why I got a little bit burnt out because, it would just be, whereas maybe a lot of people listening with you, they're doing kind of the same thing over and over. They can mass produce it. For me, it wasn't so much like that. And so I did start to, over time, try to make things available that were popular that I could just make over and over again and kind of store them, in my craft room and have them ready. But overall, it was a lot of people did want the custom side of it, which was harder. And so that's why I kind of started thinking about that switch to printables because I thought there's a lot of technology now that you can make it editable and customizable, but still make it printable so I don't have to do so much work.
Hmm. And I definitely want to dive into that side of your business too. And before you made that switch, was it because you were working like 40 hours, 20 hours, just burnt out, overwhelmed from the custom side of it and doing it yourself? Or like what did that look like for you at its peak?
Yeah. I did enjoy the custom part of it, and I still do. People reach out to me sometimes, and I just don't have enough time to do it. But I do like that. It's just, yeah, I was working a lot of hours, and I remember one night I was like about to go on vacation the next day, and I had to make sure everything was done for these two parties, and they were sent out and everything. So it was a lot of it was a lot of preparation and all of that and getting burnt out. But the other thing was I had this thing in my ear from a lot of coaches, online coaches, about how you should be diversifying your income. That was my main thing. And so I was like, okay, well, I could still make these custom items and then I could turn some of them into digital products. And that was my hope, was that I would slowly start to take all of my products and make them digital. And then I could have that option to do both if I wanted to. And I actually have some students who do that, where they're not switching completely to digital products. They're still making their handmade products and the digital. And it's kind of a good balance. I chose not to continue doing that myself, but I think it's a good option, especially for that diversity of your income and those kinds of things.
Hmm. Now, for someone who doesn't know what a printable is, can you talk us through an example of something that you used to do custom that you switched to printable, just to paint the picture of what that looks like?
Sure. Yeah. Well, they're probably very familiar with something like an invitation, right? So an
Yeah.
invitation, whereas I used to ask you, okay, when's your party? All of that. They could literally just go on to either Canva, or we do it sometimes in Adobe, where they can make those changes themselves and then print it out. Other things are, welcome signs you hang on your door, even banners that say people's names, or posters, just really anything, food cards, anything you can really imagine that you would want to kind of make your, it can be very cheesy because I like to get the theme on all the things, the favor tags, everything you can think of, you can make into a printable, that was once a custom handmade item.
What's one of like the cheesiest themes that you have with the party decor? Or like what's a bestseller? What do you love?
Oh, what's the cheesiest? Gosh, I can't think. I have this ball party that people really like. I don't know why people really like that. One that was so random was a woman came to me, and she actually would come to me every year for her kids' parties. So I was like always right around June. I was like, I knew I was doing her parties, and in fact, I just looked at the date, and she probably will contact me again. But she wanted to do a dinosaur ice cream party. And I was
Yeah.
like, how am I going to do that? And like, no one else is going to like that. But I will say people do buy that now,
Mm-hmm.
even now that I've made it into printable. So it's interesting how you might have an idea that you think no one else is going to like, but people do. And that is one of the biggest things that I think was really good with working directly with people before I switched, that I had that kind of leg up, which was I could work with someone and they told me what they wanted, as opposed to, a lot of my students are coming into this. They just want to make printables, and so where should they start? And we do walk through, a research process and how to find the demand for that. But luckily I was able to start with actual people who were telling me what they wanted, because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes when I would pick my own themes, my own ideas, people wouldn't really like them as much. And I was like shocked. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny how that happens.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I love hearing that example too of, okay, invitation. Previously, you would design it, you would edit it, you would put in their dates, the name, etc., the address. They would give you all of that. And that would be the handmade portion. But how that looks on the printable side is you give them a template. And like you said, Canva or Adobe, they just buy the template on Etsy. They find you your Etsy shop. Then they can add in their own address, their own names, the date. And then they print it themselves. Do you know if your customers, do they print at home or do they go to like a Staples to get it printed or what do they do with those different types of products?
Yeah, it runs the gamut of all the things. Like a lot of people are very crafty, so they have their own printers at home. Some people don't even are so not techie at all. They don't know even how to download it. So you kind of have to know those kinds of things going into it, how you're going to help them. And some people do go to Staples still. Some people send it off to a printer. There's some online things. But that's actually another interesting way that I was able to incorporate like another stream of income, which was I realized there was like a need with that people didn't know where to go or they didn't know what they should do. And so I started a blog alongside my business where I told people what to do and how to do it and tutorial videos and all this stuff and good printers to use for your invitations and things like that. And so that actually weirdly has been a really big part of my business. And I really like it because I love writing and things like that. And I've ended up putting a lot of those blogs onto YouTube as well. And so, like, again, just talking about this whole idea of diversifying my income, it's just really come by doing. And like you said, like, people ask questions, and then I go, oh, okay, this could be an interesting next step. So, like, a lot of times with business, you don't really know what you're gonna do next, but then someone comes to you and you're like, oh, okay, I think I know what I'm going to do next. So,
Now, how do you monetize that part? Because that's different than you teaching people printables. It sounds like
right.
there's something with customers that you're educating them on how to print, where to print, how to make sure it's right. So tell me more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is all affiliate marketing.
Ooh,
So if anybody doesn't know affiliate marketing, it's basically just, I mean, it's kind of like what the influencers do, right? They tell you about a product. If you buy that product, if you click their link in their bio, right, they get a cut of that product. And so that is a big part of my business as well. And so it's a really interesting way because depending on what it is that you are selling, particular to your business, like what can you recommend to people that people are looking for your expertise. I'm sure that with um, your handmade people, they're probably sitting on so much knowledge that they don't know about, right? If someone else is looking to start a business, like how did you package that up? What kind of little boxes did you put that in? And sharing that with people, people are really interested in that. So.
yeah, I love that. So cool. Okay, now tell me to your printable business. So did that take off when you switched to printables? Because you're still selling your printables. So tell us more about what your Etsy shop looks like today.
Yeah. I'm still selling my printables. And I basically just well, the hard thing about doing multiple things, right, is that I haven't had to been able to spend as much time in my Etsy shop as I used to because I am doing the coaching.
Yeah.
But it has been really great to teach people how to get that going, get that started. And I've had some really successful students selling their printables as well. So that's been really fun
Yeah.
to watch.
But tell us when you first made the switch, like printables, you learned the name of the game, it really skyrocketed and you saw some good
Yes,
success in
yes,
that,
sorry about
right?
that.
It's okay, I'm good.
Yeah, so I guess at first it was like a slow kind of burn. I just listed one thing that I would sell, as a actual, shipped item. It was like a poster or something. And I remember I was like out shopping and my phone said cha-ching, which on Etsy, especially if you have a handmade business, you have to kind of run home, get going, print it out, ship it out. But for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to do anything. Like, and someone can buy it again in a minute and I won't have to do anything. And so that was kind of my first taste of it. And since then it just has been climbing. And for me, I slowly, like I said, started shutting down the handmade side of it after that. But I think I could have, I think I'm balancing a lot of different things, but it sometimes I think about like, oh, maybe I should keep doing that again because it is like, whatever your kind of creativity calls you to do is like what you should do. As long as you're not feeling like you're burnt out, you can do, both things at once if you want.
Mhm.
So that's been really cool.
I love it. Now, what is your Etsy shop? A Touch of LA, right?
Uh-huh. A touch of LA.
Okay, and you are so downplaying it because I just pulled it up. 13,000 sales on Etsy. Oh my God. I knew it was a big number. So I'm like, let me see what I can if she'll tell us. 13,000, that's insane. So obviously this has been an incredible experience for you. And I love how you said that it's just been, ooh, now when an order comes in, there's no delivery, there's no work, there's nothing needed. Etsy automatically sends them the result. They have resources on how to print it DIY, and the
Hmm.
customer just runs from there. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So do you know if you were to guess the 13,000, how much is printables versus your custom handmade items? What's the
I
split?
mostly tell people most of that is printables.
Nice.
Because if you think about how much you can really do in probably just the first year or so that I was doing that, I would say 90+% is probably printables.
Nice. I love that. Okay. So you started custom handmade, switched to printables, blew up with printables, 13,000 sales on Etsy with printables. And then there was something within you that was like, I kind of figured out this printable thing on Etsy. What if I taught other people how to do that? So talk me through your train of thought because that essentially led to your printables course that you have now, where you literally teach people how to do what you did. So what was your first aha moment of like, let me teach this to people, let me become a coach, let me become an educator? What was that like for you?
Yeah. Well, that was that was an interesting thing because I had some people DMing me on Instagram and saying, how are you doing this? And this sounds interesting and that's cool. And so then I started listening to podcasts about people coaching and things like that. And I think probably a lot of people can relate to the fact that I was like, well, I'm not really a coach. I'm not really a teacher. Like that's not really my background. Could I do something like that? So I kind of sat on it for a few months and then I kind of started outlining, well, what would that look like if I taught people how to do that? And I kind of outlined what would be kind of a course situation. And I had taken courses in the past. So I was like, okay, I know how other people are doing this. So maybe I could do something like this. And so it was just that's been a a huge learning, but really fun. And it's one of my favorite things about my business is the teaching, the coaching, the working with people to get them to where they want to be. And just the learning. I think you can relate to just all the things that go into creating a course. To me, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of different, there's so many, especially as a creative person, there's so many fun things. I mean, from creating the course to recording the course to talking about it, marketing it, writing about it, going on podcasts, like all kinds of things that go with it is a lot of fun. So,
Yeah. And tell us about the course, the name of it, and what specifically you teach
yeah.
in there.
Yeah, so the course is called The Abundant Girl's Guide to Passive Income with Printables on Etsy. It's a very long title.
I love it.
Um, but what I teach in there is basically how to plan, create, and launch your printables business. So everything from, when you're thinking about it, doing that research that we talked about, trying to figure out what's in demand, what will actually sell on Etsy, to the creation part. So if you want to do it in Canva, we have a whole track on, how to do that. And then we also have it in Adobe Photoshop because we have a lot of designers that come in who are already graphic designers or they use it for work or whatnot, and they just want to use what they know. And so they can use it that way. And then the launching aspect of it, which I'm sure you teach a lot about as well, the keyword, the SEO, growing your shop and all of that. So it's kind of the full court press for selling printables.
And is this a course that people, it's like a one-time payment for people to enroll in?
Yes, yeah.
And
So I probably launch a few times a year, I would say.
yeah.
And just so we can all be on the same page and we do some coaching in there. There's different kind of packages to see what it is that you need. Some people need a little more hand holding, a little more accountability, right? And some people are kind of scared of the tech, things like that. So just helping people through it. And then there's also kind of an option to kind of do it at your own pace. If you don't need any of that, you can do that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a little bit for everybody.
And what are the price points for the different options that you offer?
So this time when I'm going to be launching this July, and it's going to be, I think, 197 for the self-study, and
Nice.
it'll be 497 for the kind of the handheld. And this time I have been, just as you probably have been learning about your students, I'm realizing that my students really need a lot more hand holding and not in like a negative way at all, just they really want that accountability. They want to know specifically what do I do next. And so I'm going to be adding in um, a more personal touch and kind of like a one-on-one aspect because I think people are needing that more than ever right now. I just feel like there's a
Mhm.
lot of courses out there where people are just feeling like they're getting lost in the group and things like that. And so that's kind of what I'm hearing from people. So I'm hoping that's going to really help them this time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, one thing you mentioned when you started talking about this course and your idea to create it is some of that imposter syndrome of like, but am I a coach? Am I a teacher? So what helped you to really overcome that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that is such a big piece of it. And I bet you there's so many people listening to this thinking, oh, I would love to do that, but that's what's holding me back.
Hmm.
And I will say the only thing that has gotten me through it is to just go forward with it because I just had to like prove to myself that like I could do it and that people would listen to me and I could make a difference. I think that's the biggest thing is when you have a student who gets a result, whatever that little thing is, that's when you go, okay, wow, like I guess I could teach people how to do this. So I think we all doubt ourselves, as you can probably relate to, but you just have to push through that and just see what you're capable of. And I think you always surprise yourself.
I love that. Well, let me ask this question too, because you're teaching printables to essentially to sell printables on Etsy, while at the same time, you still sell printables on Etsy. So did it ever come through your mind, or did you have to come to terms with like, well, what if people, am I just helping my competition? And are people going to take my ideas and I'm showing them how to do exactly what I'm doing? Did that ever cross your mind? And what was your train of thought through that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably in the very, very beginning, I thought about that. Um, but then kind of and that is where the shift came of like maybe not spending as much time on Etsy and more focusing on the coaching was like, it's so much more exciting to see someone get a result. And of course, luckily, I mean, I have great students. I'm sure there's people who would copy and things like that, but I haven't seen anyone, copy any of my stuff or anything like that. But I think, as you know, like competition in business is something we've had to like really weigh and try to figure out and things like that. But I think, yeah, I just had to kind of get over that. And that's actually something that a lot of my students worry about as well, because they worry that they're just going to list something and someone's going to come and steal it from them. And what's the point? And they did all this work. And I always remind them that like, not everyone's doing this because it's not just like a get rich quick thing, right? Just like all of these things, business is not get rich quick. So for anyone who's going to do that, they're not going to put in the time, to do all the things that you did. And once you have a more established shop like I do, yes, people can take very similar designs, but when you establish your shop, it's harder. People are still going to come to you for that product, even if other people are selling it, because you're established, you're trusted, you have the reviews, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I definitely thought about it, but I had to get over it really quick.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I totally get that. Now, when
Yeah.
you talk about this program that you have and the two different tiers, how many members have you welcomed to your program in total, if you know the number off the top of your head?
Um, I don't know the total number. I think it's around 300 is
Nice.
how many people.
That is
Yeah. So,
awesome.
yeah, it's been exciting. It's
Yeah.
been a journey for sure.
And I think that's so cool because when you talk about diversification, your story is the perfect example of that. Custom handmade, super labor intensive. Okay, let's diversify with printables. Okay, let's diversify with affiliate links for people who want to like print themselves and need the tools or supplies. And then let's diversify with, I mastered how to sell printables on Etsy. I've got over 13,000 sales, primarily printables on Etsy. And I have this pull and this desire to teach and coach people. Let me diversify further by helping them and having 300 members in your course that ranges between 197 to 497. That is incredible. That is so awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And that's something that I learned really early on when I started my business was that I wanted to really diversify because when, let's say, the course isn't really maybe doing as well as I want it, I've got the affiliate marketing. When that's not, I'm still getting it from Etsy. So it's like there's always something. And I think even if for people who don't have businesses, I think it's a good reminder that we need to have a lot of different things of income in our lives. I think especially with the economy. And I mean, the economy's been crazy since who knows when, right? And so I think it's always just a good reminder, like never put all your eggs in one basket, right? Just try to have, as many different things as possible so that if something happens over here, you're safeguarded.
Yeah. And what does that diversification give you? Is it like a sense of security, sense of peace, or why is that important to you? Since it's been something that you've kind of from the beginning of your business have had the intention of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely is much more secure because, people always talk about Etsy sales going up and down, right? Especially in the creative world, more people, depending on what you sell, right? If you are more kind of holiday focused, right? You're going to get more of your sales during the holidays, and then you might have kind of a slowdown in January or whenever it is. And so you kind of have to be prepared for that to feel that safety and security as much as you can. And then also I feel like with a lot of people who start businesses, we have a lot of like creativity and excitement to do different things. And you just get kind of excited about, okay, what else can I do? Now that I've done this kind of seems like the next step. And so I'm going to try that. And so I think that's a really fun aspect of it.
Yeah, I love it so much. Well, tell us where people can find you. So we need all the links, your Etsy shop, your social media, where people can find out more about your printables course. So tell us where you live.
Yes. Okay. So they can come check me out on Instagram. I love to hang out there. Lindsay _Ashworth. And you can check out my website at atouchofla.com. And what else? If you are thinking about selling printables, as I mentioned, we are going to be opening the program this summer, so they can. What's a free freebie for them? I guess if they are thinking about selling and they're like, well, what am I going to sell? I'm not sure. How can you help me kind of figure out what that is? If you go to a touchofla.com/first, it's going to help you figure out your first printable to make a profit.
I love it. I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes so people can find you. Thank you, Lindsay. So
Um,
good catching up with
Thank
you
you
and
so
having
much
you
for
here.
having me.